Greetings, citizens of Nerdtropolis. Sean Taj here, the mayor of Nerdtropolis, and my guest today is Marc Turtletaub, who directs the film Jules starring Ben Kingsley. Marc, it's a pleasure to talk to you today about your movie Jules. It is a captivating and brilliant film to me. I love the combination of drama, science fiction, and the human connection. And Ben Kingsley's performance was truly extraordinary, making this a rare gem of a film. But I have one question for you: is why cats?
Well, we don't want to give away too much, do we? But I did ask the writer, Gavin Steckler. I said, how did you come up with the idea of cats for fuel? And he said, well, I was thinking, what could I use to create fuel? And what would be interesting? And he said, and then I thought of cats. It's like, what? Where did that idea come from? It just came out of, a stroke of wild imagination. And I think much of the movie has that in it, John. And that's part of what drew me to it and drew the actors to it. It's just so wildly imaginative.
But it's also heartfelt and touching and very thought-provoking watching this. And then so, Jules is such an interesting premise, but what inspired you to blend the themes of like the heartwarming and inventiveness of this film with all the themes?
No, it's the way it came. When I read it, Sean, I saw all those elements in it. And in my movies, whether I direct or before that, when I produced, I always look for heart in the movie and for meaning. And so I always say there's two things I look for when I find a piece of material, and one, a screenplay. One is I want to find that it's about something. And usually that about something has to do with somebody transforming and having a humanistic approach, and that there's heart in the story, and this had that. And the other is I want a world that no one has seen before. And so that's the two things when I read this screenplay that I found. It was baked in, Sean. I'd like to say, I made sure that I added that element, but it was baked into the screenplay.
It's a great screenplay. And how did you approach balancing the drama, the science fiction aspect, and the comedy to engage the story? It's such blendedly beautifully.
Thank you, Sean. I that was the goal. When I first read it, the question was, well, you don't see these things, as you said, you don't see them in a movie together. You don't see a little science fiction. You don't see a buddy movie. You don't see a person aging. You don't see people coming together later in life. You don't find wild inventiveness. You don't find humor, and you don't find pathos all in one movie. And so that was the challenge. And I wasn't sure how I would pull it off, but I knew I had to try when I read the screenplay. And part of the secret, there's two keys, if you want. The secret sauce is two elements. One, you get great actors. And I was so blessed to have these amazing actors. And two, you find great editors. And I had two wonderful editors who worked with me and helped to keep the tone consistent.
Ben Kingsley is part of that secret sauce right there. What was it like working with such a seasoned actor, and how did he bring the depth to the character?
I think that's easy. That part of it is easy for him. That's where he lives. He's by nature a thoughtful and an emotionally deep person. What was unique was to see, the humor, because we haven't seen that much. I mean, you look back, if you look back at IMDb, you'll find a couple of comedies out of 100 movies, maybe, but nothing this wild. And so for me, that's what was so unique and why I wanted to see him in that role so much.
I love seeing him in everything when he's serious and funny, and I just love everything he's in. And the rest of the cast is great. I love the trio that we make with Ben, with Harriet, Sansom Harris, and Jane Curtin. Can you tell me about the casting process and what each actor brought to their roles?
That's a great question. So I was very fortunate. All of the main actors responded within 5 days of reading the script and said they wanted to be in. So that was a great start. Harriet Sansom Harris, well, we talked about Sir Ben, and we all know him. Harriet Sansom Harris is a wonderful both stage and movie and TV actress, but not a household name, if you will. She should be. And having seen her in Phantom Thread and Licorice Pizza and other movies, I was she kind of steals every scene she's in. And so I was really fortunate to get her. And I think she's one of the really wonderful gifts of this movie. And then Jane Curtin, of course, is Jane Curtin. There's only one of her. I knew I needed something to balance the other two. You've got Milton, who's sort of serious character, Harriet, who's a bit whimsical and very emotional. And then you needed a character who was going to be, if you were going to do a painting, going to be the red to go with all of the blues and greens. And she comes in and she gives that different element that the film actually needed. And so together, I think they work beautifully together.
I actually really love Jane's character. Like you said, she's red, but then towards the movie, she becomes more blue and green. And I love seeing her transition in that. It's beautiful to see that because she really comes really hard and stern. And then she really opens up.
It's exactly the performance. She over the course of the movie, she becomes part of this trio. And in the beginning, she's on the outside. She's probably on the outside with everyone. Even when she goes to town hall in the beginning, they all probably think she's a bit of a wacko. And then by the middle of the movie, you really care about her.
That's exactly the journey I was on with her on that. And the encounter with Jules attracts the attention of the government, leading to an exciting and imaginative plot. But how did you approach incorporating those elements into the story while maintaining the film's heartwarming core? And how did you ensure the story reimagined and being grounded and relatable despite, the sci-fi elements? Because it's still very grounded.
Your questions are great, Sean. That's exactly what I worried about getting into the movie is how do we do all that? How do we keep all that in a consistent tone? And part of it is I had to reduce some of the science fiction chase, all that kind of stuff elements, and I had to take out some wonderful scenes just because it would have weighted the movie too much into a traditional sci-fi trope. And so we reduced a number of those elements that were in the screenplay, but just didn't fit with the rest of the movie. And the other part is that in working with all of the actors, we all said, let's keep this grounded. Let's play it real. Yes, there's a 4'11" alien eating apples. Yes, that's not normal, but let's act as if it is normal. Let's talk as if we actually don't find the humor in what we're saying. And so by the performances of kept it grounded. They never play it for the joke. They never play it for the outrageousness. It just exists. And then it allows the audience to find the humor themselves.
It's a brilliant film. And I love the design of the UFO and the alien. How did that come about? Because it's also very classic and simple, but it works.
I wanted, when I first read it, I wanted to not be a whole CGI thing. I wanted it to be very practical, very grounded. And the production designer, Richard Hoover, came in and we designed a ship that was very practical. I forget how many, 8 pieces or something. And we installed it in the backyard. And then when we had to move it to when the ship is supposed to move, we moved the ship in pieces and reassembled it. They drove it, I don't know how many miles, 60 miles to another location, reassembled it again. So that was all done practically. And we did think about movies from the 50s and 60s, even 70s, Flash Gordon, movies like that, and said, okay, let's use that as our North Star. And I think even going down to the way Jules looked, instead of using CGI, we put an actor in a costume. And Jade Kwan plays the alien.
I love it. I love the look of it all. What message do you hope that viewers take away from this film?
that you can have a film which has depth and emotion and do it in a way in which we walk out feeling good about ourselves and about the characters and laugh along the way.
I love this movie, Marc. I really appreciate your time today. But Jules is a surprise film of the year for me. I really enjoyed it. And I think it's a great time to talk about aliens as what's going on in the real world, apparently.
Absolutely. And one thing I would say, Sean, these independent movies like this are so dependent on word of mouth. So thank you. And if people like the movie, please go out and spread the word.
They're going to love it, Marc. That's definitely going to happen. So thank you so much for your time again, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, Sean.
Once again, this is Sean Taj, the mayor of Nerdtropolis, and stay tuned for more movie news, reviews, interviews, and trailers.